Live on YouTube with Regis Reeves. And Regis, this mic is all yours. Live on YouTube with Regis Reeves. And
forgive myself. My life feels good, and I can have what I want, and I want joy, and I want peace. I love myself. My life feels good, and I can have what I want, and I want joy, and I want opportunity finds me. I create what I need. I'm open to suggestions. I accept success. I take responsibility. Abundance flows through me, and I prosper. Because I love myself. I forgive myself. My life feels good, and I can have what I want, and I want joy, and I want peace. I love myself. I forgive myself. My life feels good, and I can have what I want, and I want joy, and I want peace. Opportunity finds me. I create what I need. I'm open to suggestions. I accept success. I take responsibility. Abundance flows through me, and I prosper. You prosper. We prosper. I prosper. Because I love myself. I forgive myself, and my life feels good, and I can have what I want, and I want joy, and I want peace, and I can have what I want.
You are listening live to ACIM Gather, a gathering for A Course in Miracles students and teachers. For more shows and information, visit acimgather.com.
You're grateful for. See the faces of God in your life that are represented by kids, family members, people you work with, people in this church. Breathe it in. Let's sing it one more time. Gratitude before me, behind. Gratitude behind. All that was behind me, to the left. Gratitude to the left of me, to the right. Gratitude to the right of me, above me. Gratitude above me, below me.
Give it all you got. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You might win, you might lose. Shoot your best shot. Get mad, get even, if you must.
Remember not to forget to laugh. To worry about the future, nor the past. Don't you know who walks beside you? Beside you. Don't you know that only love is true? Remember you were born to fit all, and when you started to fall, you had intention. And did I mention that this tension is only a dream? Life is not all that it seems.
Good morning and welcome all. Thank you for hanging out and being in ACIM Gather with us this Tuesday morning, the 334th day of the year. And welcome Zuma, Gloria, Karen. Myrna is in the Zoom chat room with Lynn and I. And welcome Myrna is in early. And so she'll be coming on in less than an hour now. And we look forward to that. Dove and Gloria, and let's see, I said Gloria and Delia. and anyone else that's listening by radio, ACIM Gather Radio, where you can find the radio app at acimgather.us, and also live right now on YouTube. So if YouTube is easier, then we have those who will be listening on YouTube. And I like the YouTube because, of course, we have the YouTube apps on our smart TVs. So I can just bring it up on my TV when other people are on, and have them on the big screen and the volume up in the room while I do other tasks and chores around the house. So it's great. So by whichever means, or by playback or recording, welcome to ACIM Gather. Yesterday, I wanted to talk about just the mind, the thoughts, the way the mind works. We refer to it in A Course in Miracles as the ego, the thinking mind. Other people, I say more of the habitual mind than the thinking mind. And others in other religious organizations just simply refer to it as the devil. You know, and tomato, pecan. A rose is still a rose, whether called by some other name. So that trouble that you have inside your head between your ears, that's always going. Some teaching psychologists call it chatty Cathy, you know, nervous Willie, or whatever. But that voice, that sound, that commentator, I call it the Howard Cosell of the mind. And by me saying Howard Cosell, I'm really dating myself because you got to be a few years old to even know who Howard Cosell is. But it's that commentator that has something to say about everything. Nilly Willy, Karen says, yeah. So whatever, and you may just call it your mind. You may not have done a lot of spiritual study or examination of human psychology. So you may just think, it's my mind, therefore it's me. But if you think it's you, well, who is noticing? Who is the person or the being that's noticing what the mind is saying? So just think about that for a moment. So I will submit to you with that thought that maybe it's not you, the real you, because if it's you, then who's noticing you? And that was one of the awakening moments that Eckhart Tolle had. Wait a minute. Who's the person that's thinking I'm depressed? There's someone presenting depressive thoughts, and then there's someone that's noticing the depressive thoughts, and someone saying, well, I'm depressed. So what's going on here? So just food for thought. And for A Course in Miracles, we often refer to it as the ego. And I just been thinking about the thinking mind, the habitual mind, a lot in the last few weeks. And so I decided to talk about it some more, or talk about it over live internet mediums such as this. And so, because I think it's thoughts that are worthy of being shared and that should be shared. And why? Because others need this help. I just can't keep all of this information to myself. We only hear, we say, to be truly helpful. And the best way to help my brother, my sister is, as we say, instead of giving them a fish, teach them how to fish. Teach them how, teach your family members, teach your friends how to be happy on their own so that they'll stop stressing you out, demanding that you help them be happy. Teach them how to sustain and maintain their own happiness. And sometimes we love to be what we call a good friend, empathetic, a shoulder to lean on. But I say, teach them how to sustain and maintain their own happiness. It's great to get a hug. It's great to get an encouraging word to say, you can do it, you're gonna make it. But teach them what you have. They always coming to me. They coming to Regis, in so many words saying, lift me up, help me feel better, Regis. So why don't Regis teach them how to fish? Teach them how to be, do, and have what he has, which is happiness, which is peace, which is joy, which is laughter, which is love, which is, or who is God. So we were looking at the introduction of chapter 11 of A Course in Miracles yesterday, and just some bring us up to today's date, just to go back and cover just a little. The first paragraph of the introduction says, either God or the ego is insane. If you will examine the evidence on both sides fairly, you will realize this must be true. And, somebody's crazy. Somebody is insane. And one of the examples yesterday, we say, God blessed me with this house. I always wanted this house. And then here comes a hurricane or a tornado or earthquake and destroys the house some years later. And we say, this is the Lord's work. I can't question it. So God bless it, the Lord give it, the Lord take it away. Wait a minute. He gave it to me, that made me happy. Now he's taking it away, that's making me sad. Either God or the ego is insane. If you will examine the evidence on both sides fairly, you will realize this must be true. Neither God nor the ego proposes a partial thought system. Each is internally consistent, but they are diametrically opposed in all respects, so that partial allegiance is impossible. So, like the commercial, you can't be just a little bit pregnant, and we like to think that, with just a little bit, we have a little bit of allegiance to the ego. But if this is true, what the Holy Spirit is speaking through A Course in Miracles, it says partial allegiance is impossible. Remember too that their results are as different as their foundations, and their fundamentally irreconcilable natures cannot be reconciled by vacillations between them, going back and forth. Well, I know the Course say this, but my ego is saying this. I know the Course is saying this, but my habitual mind is reminding me of what happened the last time. Well, so we won't be able to reconcile them by vacillating between the two. Also, paragraph 2, and I'm jumping, just a quick recap. Yet, what would you say to someone who believed this question really involves conflict? If you made the ego, how can the ego have made you? If you made the ego, how can the ego have made you? And lesson 236, which is coming up in 2 days, says, I have a kingdom and I'm its ruler, and that kingdom is my mind. And so the ego, the habitual thinking mind, can't be the boss of me. I can't allow that. And let me say this caveat. Whatever the Holy Spirit says we can do, we can do. It's really no such thing as I'm not there yet. I can't do it. It's hard. If the Holy Spirit is suggesting that I can do it, I can do it. I have to get out of my own way. So jumping now to chapter 11, the dynamics of the ego. And we had started just into the first paragraph yesterday. And that paragraph says, no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them. We have to look. I know some people, they really figuratively walk around in life with their hands over their eyes, with their fingers cracked, peeping through the cracks. We are afraid to look. Well, what's that thought about? Well, why did you say that? Why do you feel that way? I don't want to look. Oh, I don't know. No, you can look. You can know. The words, the thought, the story is coming from you. So let's look at the story that we're telling. Let's look at what we're presenting. Let's, as I like to say, think about what we're thinking about. No one can escape. So really, you can't escape from misery. You can't escape from stress and mental stress and anguish and frustration if you're unwilling to take a look. In this text, a few chapters over, it says we must first realize we're miserable. The road to happiness and peace, the first step is first realizing that we're miserable now. I was listening at Joyce Myers just yesterday, and she talked about how she was raised in such a chaotic home and being raped by her own dad as a little girl. And her home was just filled with chaos and control and manipulation and anger. And she said she just really didn't know what peace was. Stress was the norm. Chaos was the norm. Upset and fear and frustration was the norm. So it took a lot of work. It took a lot for her to realize that that wasn't peace. That the life she was living wasn't peace, it wasn't happiness, it wasn't a loving, love-filled, joy-filled life. And so she did the work, but she looked. If anybody's familiar with her, if you really just hear through all of the other stuff that she's saying that you may not agree with, that may be religious or Christianity or whatever, or doctrine, but if you hear what she said, she consistently decided to look at herself, to look at how she was presenting herself, what she was believing about herself. So no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them. For not looking is the way they are protected. So you're guaranteed to never be free. You're guaranteed to never truly be happy or have sustained happiness or peace if you will not look. If you're afraid to look. JFK, John F. Kennedy, many years ago, the only fear that really is a problem is the fear of fear itself. And what, even from a physical standpoint, can looking at my thoughts do? I mean, they're not, I said yesterday, a big giant boxing glove is not going to come out the sky and punch me in the head if I look at my thoughts. So what's the fear of looking and thinking about what I'm thinking about? And listen at what this paragraph says. There is no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system because together we have the lamp that would dispel it. And the we is you and the Holy Spirit, you and God, you and love. We are willing, we are ready to look together because together we have the lamp that would dispel it. And since you realize you do not want it, you must be ready. I realize I don't want to be upset. I realize I don't want to be fearful and having feelings of abandonment and failure and fear of failure and all of these other disempowering thoughts and ideas and emotions going on within me all the time. Let us be very calm in doing this, for we are merely looking honestly for truth. I like that it says we are merely looking honestly for truth. So you're not doing a big thing. This chatty Cathy, this nilly willy that goes on between our ears that wants to blow it up and make it feel so huge and so over dramatized. We are merely looking honestly for truth. And I'm hearing a lot of static in my ear, and that just may be in my headset. So I hope that's not what you're hearing. I've never heard it like that before. There we go. All right. I wasn't plugged all the way in my headset, so I don't think it was going out to you. It was just in my ear. All right. So I had to look at it. I either could let the static continue and be afraid, oh, this is going to ruin the show. I don't know what's going to happen. I just need to just keep going. No, I paused. I looked at the static. I examined it and I fixed it. It dispelled itself. And the fear was there. Let me tell you, in just this few seconds, it was there. Well, I might make it worse. Don't think you might make it worse. You may. That's what the thought system does. That's what the ego thought system does. I'm gonna create a problem, and I want you to, and then I'm gonna make you afraid to even look at it. I'm gonna present ideas that intimidate you and try to keep you from looking at it. So I pushed through, and I found that I wasn't fully connected, so I connected myself. And voila, all the static in my ear is gone. And that's really just a great depiction of what goes on with us, with the habitual thinking mind, with the ego thought system. So here we go. The dynamics of the ego will be our lesson for a while, for we must look first at this to see beyond it. See, you got to look at it. I got to look at it. I have to look at it. I always have two computers on to make sure that I can monitor what other people are hearing. So I leaned my ear into the second computer and I saw that, well, I don't hear static in the second computer, so it must just be in my ear. So I started to examine my headset and my headset connection. I had to look, I had to brave all of the thoughts of what could go wrong and look. Fearful thoughts present themselves to all of us. We all have a mind. We all have a thinking mind. We all have a habitual mind. We all get presented with fears of horror and failure, and we're going to be made to look foolish and stupid. And Karen typed, the ego thought system is full of doubt. Yeah. The Course in Miracles says the mind was made to fear. And the body was made to die because Gloria typed just a second ago also, the ego is misery and death. The mind is made to fear and the body is made to die. So the body world experience can be quite a miserable experience if we don't join our faith and trust and begin to reteach in lesson 236. I have a kingdom I must rule, which is my mind. It tells us we can repurpose the mind. Yes, the mind, the ego thought system has an agenda, but we can repurpose the mind. It says the mind has been given to serve at our pleasure, to help me. And now I have began to tell my mind to help me. Help me remember the truth of who I am. Help me to see the light in others. Help me to remember. You can will the mind to assist you in this experience that we're having called life, called human. And I say human doings. We have traditionally referred to ourselves as human beings. But this human experience, we can command our kingdom to assist us in navigating this experience in peace, in happiness, in joy, and in love, in agreement with God's will that we be perfectly happy. And if, as I said earlier, if the Holy Spirit says we can do it, we can do it. And I'm just going to jump over there real quick to that lesson 236. And yet it has been given me to serve whatever purpose I perceive in it. This is talking about our mind. And yet it has been given me to serve whatever purpose I perceive in it. My mind can only serve. Today, I give his service to the Holy Spirit to employ as he sees fit. I direct my mind, which I alone can rule. If God says I can, I can. As we study A Course in Miracles and spiritual truths, we must learn to just agree with them. We must begin to train ourselves to just agree with them. I agree. I thus direct my mind, which I alone can rule. It says I can. Who are you to say you can't? And that's what the ego wants us to do, exalt ourselves over God. Ego says I'm God. Chatty Cathy, Nilly Willy says you can't. And I love the thought that I received in my Christian experience, in my time that I spent deeply devoted to the teachings of the Bible. And one of the philosophies and truths that came out of that time was, if God says I can, I can. If God says I am, I am. I am who God says I am. I am not who I think I am. I am not who my family says I am. I am not who this world says I am. I am who God says I am. I'm not who my circumstance point to whom I might be. I'm not what my mistakes suggest I might be. I am who God says I am. So if the Holy Spirit says I can, I can. It don't matter If I feel like I wasn't very successful at it up until now, if God says I can, I can. And I thus set my mind free to do the will of God, which is to make me happy. We don't have to wonder, well, what's the will of God? God's will for me is happiness, is perfectly happiness. That's his will. So I set my mind free to do the will of God. Make me happy. Have you commanded your mind to make you happy? Have you directed your mind to keep you happy? If it's keeping you happy, it can't present you fearful thoughts. If it's keeping you happy, it can't present you all of these disempowering thoughts that's being presented. A lady said to me at work a few years ago, she just stumped her feet because she was trying to be negative and she was trying to paint a negative picture to me. And I saw the lemon and I made lemonade in an instant, in a matter of seconds. What she was presenting, I turned into lemonade real quick. And she just said, "You can see the good side of anything, Regis." That was a great compliment. I didn't take that as a criticism. I took that as a compliment. She stomped her feet. Oh. So, have you commanded your mind to make you happy? Show me the sunny side of life. Show me the love. Show me people. I was talking to some people at work a couple of days ago, and I was telling them people in the world, in America, are still really good. I said the news just is 2% of what's going on, maybe two, maybe one, or at best 10% of what's going on. It's not showing you all the people that are doing kind things, that are saying kind words all day, every day, that are paying it forward, that are just doing things that they don't have to do for others, acts of kindness and love and concern, and the sharing of positive words and uplifting words. What's being presented on the internet, in social media, 5 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news, whatever time it comes on. It's just a small percentage. People still want to do the right thing. People still want love and happiness. People still believe in it. Have you commanded your kingdom to assist you in God's will for you, which is happiness? Now back to the text, chapter 11, paragraph 2. And we're in the chapter 11. I did not state it earlier. I'm actually in section 5, the dynamics of the ego. Paragraph 2. What is healing but the removal of all that stands in the way of knowledge? And how else can one dispel illusions except by looking at them directly without protecting them? Be not afraid. So here again, in this paragraph, it's reiterating in the introduction, in the first paragraph of this section, now in the second paragraph. First of all, we got to decide that we are going to look, that we are going to think about what we're going to think about. Am I of being wrong? Yes. I know hundreds of thousands that are that afraid of being. I just don't want to look, because I don't want to think I've been wrong all these years. I don't want to think that I could have still been in my first marriage if I if Chatty Cathy and Nilly Willy wasn't running my life. I probably would have never divorced the first time. I probably would not have quit that job or got fired from it if I had not have been listening to Nilly Willy, who had me caught up in a lot of fearful thoughts, and sabotaged my happiness through the experience that I was having in this body world experience. New Testament says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So what is healing but the removal of all that stands in the way of knowledge? And if you're not in the chat room, Karen just typed, maybe Nilly Willy and Chatty Cathy should get married. They wouldn't make it through the honeymoon. Because on the way to the honeymoon, they would talk themselves out of the marriage. What is healing but the removal of all that stands in the way of knowledge? And how else can one dispel illusions except by looking at them directly without protecting them? I can't be so afraid of being wrong. You know, the whole idea of embarrassment is like, that's just, as one person might say, that's just fear gone to seed. Just the idea of embarrassment. You know, I'm so embarrassed that I was wrong, that I decided wrongly, that I'd rather continue to be wrong. That's like I'm on the way to California, headed toward Florida, and I'm so embarrassed to the other people that I'm driving that I just keep the pedal to the metal towards Florida. And I don't want to turn around. I'm just hoping I'm going to keep going east. In some kind of way, I'm going to end up west. Because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want them to think I'm stupid. I made a mistake. Embarrassment will cause divorces. Because the person just really don't want to admit how wrong they were about something and how misguided they were. The embarrassment that they allowed themselves to be deceived and misguided and have done whatever or said whatever that violated their relationship. They'll rather tank the relationship than just look at, hey, I did this. I shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We will tank the relationship trying to save face. We will let a disharmony go for days when we already know the truth of it. We'll let it go for days until it takes us that long to get the courage to come back and face it and say, you know what? Yep, I was wrong. What is healing but the removal of all that stands in the way of knowledge? And how else can we dispel illusions except by looking at them directly without protecting them? Be not afraid. Therefore, for what you will be looking at is the source of fear. And you are beginning to learn that fear is not real. You are also learning that its effects can be dispelled merely by denying their reality. There's nothing else to do. Really, all we have to do is look, and the truth dispels the fear. When we look at a thought and see, oh, that's not reality. That's not what's really going on. It just goes. We don't have to do anything else. There's no work. That's why the course through the workbook reminds us early on, above all else, I'm willing to see. I'm just willing to see. I'm not committing to taking any action. I'm not committing to quitting anything, to joining anything, to dismissing anything. I'm not committing to doing anything. I'm not even committing to reading A Course in Miracles every day. Above all else, I'm just willing to. I'm not committing to being a student of A Course in Miracles the rest of my life. I'm just willing to look. I'm willing to see. And what nilly-willy, the habitual thinking mind, jumps in and immediately, when it gets threatened and it sees that we're willing to look, we're developing some willingness to look, we're kind of standing up within ourselves and we're deciding, in the process of deciding that we're going to really look, we're really going to think about what we're thinking about, then the ego starts immediately holding up things that we hold dear. See, the Course talks about, what are you holding dear? What are you cherishing? The Course in Miracles says, what are you cherishing? What are you holding dear? So immediately the ego starts saying, if you take a look, you may have to quit that job. If you take a look, you may have to leave that man, because that's a special relationship, you know. So you don't want to look. If you take a look, you may have to give all your money away. You may have to move back to Mississippi. You know, if you take a look. So the ego starts throwing stuff up in a flash, in a matter of nanoseconds. And welcome Sharon is in the Pal Talk room. It just starts throwing up whatever it can throw up. Oh, you're going to have to sell your house if you look. You're going to have to go move back to Paducah and take care of your sick parents. If you take a look, don't look. You're going to have to sacrifice. Looking is going to cause you to have to sacrifice something. And all of that is a lie to keep us from looking. Don't look, Regis. Don't look. Don't look. Don't try to figure out why you hear this static in your headset. You're going to disconnect the whole show. Don't look. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. How do I stop being afraid? Stop being afraid. Be not afraid. If the Holy Spirit suggests that I can be not afraid, guess what? I can be not afraid. No yeah buts. If God is saying I can, I can. In this, and Karen says, stop trusting your own strength. Be not afraid. Therefore, for what you will be looking at is the source of fear, and you are beginning to learn that fear is not real. You are also learning that its effects can be dispelled merely by denying their reality. The next step is obviously to recognize that what has no effect does not exist. The next step is obviously to recognize that what has no effect does not exist. And we're 7 minutes out from Myrna and Doug. And so I'm wrapping this up. I'm jumping down to the 8th sentence of paragraph 2. Again, it says in the same paragraph, do not be afraid then to look upon fear, for it cannot be seen. Clarity undoes confusion by definition. And to look upon darkness through light must dispel it. This is a beautiful thing. And so all the devil, all the ego tries to do is keep us in the fear of fear itself, to keep us from looking, to keep us like that little 2-year-old that pulls the cover, jumps in bed and pulls the cover over their head and tries to peep out, that puts their hand over their face, afraid to see, afraid of what they might see, and trying to peep through their fingers. Take your hand, and there's a place in the course, it says, pull the covers off your head. I can't remember exactly where it is, but it literally says, pull the covers down, stop hiding under the covers. And that's what we figuratively and emotionally and mentally do. I'm willing to see. Don't be afraid then to look upon fear, for it cannot be seen. Just like when you were a kid and you covered your face and you peeped out, you didn't see anything. You peeped out and you looked to the left, you looked to the right, and you didn't see anything. I'm hiding from nothing. Do not be afraid then to look upon fear, for it cannot be seen. Clarity undoes confusion by definition. And to look upon darkness through light must dispel it. It just disappears. Poop. Gone, because it was never there. So I will be back in these same areas on Thursday at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, I believe. But I'll be back on Thursday looking some more at this, and I'm going to add to it my birthday lesson, which is tomorrow, August 23rd, my birthday. And my birthday lesson, I'm going to also combo that with my birthday lesson, lesson 235. I need but look upon all things that seem to hurt me, and with perfect certainty assure myself, God wills that I be saved from this, and merely watch it disappear. Just what we was just talking about. So I don't need to do anything. I just need to remember God wills that I be saved from this, and merely watch them disappear. I need but keep in mind my Father's will for me is only happiness, to find that only happiness has come. And thank you all for the birthday wishes. And yes, Sharon, yeah, I'll see you tonight. Glorian, Myrna let me see, how Dove has not popped into the Zoom room yet, but Lynn and Dove and Myrna will take the close right after this.
I am loving awareness. bring love, I am here. I am loving awareness. No loneliness and no fear. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. I am loving awareness in everything that I see. I am loving awareness. I am you, you are me. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. No loneliness and no fear. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om.
You're listening to ACIM Gather Radio for students and teachers of A Course in Miracles. Join us at acimgather.us.